When the U.S. Navy commissioned this ship in 2020, Congress was furious. Marine Corps generals were furious. Defense analysts wrote that it had forgotten how to be an amphibious warship. The Navy had removed its well deck, the chamber that every amphibious ship since World War II has used to launch landing craft, and replaced it with hangars. Critics called it an overpriced aviation platform that couldn't do the one job an amphibious ship is supposed to do: put troops on a beach. 5 years after that controversy, the USS Tripoli departed Okinawa at high speed on March 11, 2026, carrying roughly 2,500 Marines of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, the only continuously forward-deployed MEU on the planet. Destination: the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway the U.S. Navy has publicly described as an Iranian kill box. The ship everyone said was a mistake is now the ship the Pentagon is betting on to change the equation that 2 carrier strike groups, over 100 neutralized Iranian vessels, and 3 weeks of the most intensive air campaign in years have not been able to solve. To understand why the USS Tripoli was so controversial, you need to understand what a well deck is and why every amphibious ship in history has had one. A well deck is a ballast-flooded chamber at the stern of the ship, essentially a garage that opens to the sea, from which landing craft, hovercraft, and amphibious vehicles launch directly onto beaches. It is the mechanism by which Marines get from ship to shore without touching the water in a way that exposes them to fire. Every assault ship since World War II has one. It is the defining feature of an amphibious warship. When the Navy designed the America-class Flight Zero ships, USS America and USS Tripoli, it made a deliberate choice to remove the well deck entirely. In its place came a dramatically enlarged aviation hangar, expanded aircraft maintenance facilities, increased jet fuel storage, and a reinforced flight deck capable of sustaining high-tempo F-35B stealth fighter operations. The trade was real. More aviation capacity, less amphibious landing capability. Critics argued the ship could not land heavy armor, could not launch landing craft through mined water, and had surrendered the core identity of an amphibious warship in pursuit of a capability the Navy already had on aircraft carriers. The backlash was severe enough that Congress mandated the well deck be restored on the third hull, USS Bougainville. But the Navy understood something the critics did not, or would not say publicly. The space the well deck had occupied unlocked a capability no other amphibious ship on Earth possessed. In April 2022, during Tripoli's maiden deployment, the ship operated 20 F-35B Lightning II stealth fighters simultaneously from its deck in a single surge demonstration. 25th generation stealth jets from a ship that costs $3.5 billion, nearly half the air wing of a $13 billion supercarrier. The ship the critics called a failed experiment had just proven the Lightning carrier concept in the Pacific. And nobody in the Navy had forgotten that demonstration when the orders for the Middle East came through. Is that the Abraham Lincoln and Gerald Ford are operating in the open ocean, too valuable to risk inside the Persian Gulf. An F-35, launching from a carrier 500 nautical miles away, has roughly 40 minutes of patrol time over the Hormuz corridor before it must return. Tripoli, at 44,000 tons, is expendable enough in the risk calculus to operate far closer to the threat. At 100 nautical miles instead of 500, transit time drops from over an hour to 13 minutes. Time on station over the Strait triples. The gap between carrier air power and persistent presence over the corridor closes. Then there are the Marines. And here is where removing the well deck stops being a weakness and becomes a specific advantage for this specific environment. Iran spent decades preparing water-level defenses, mines, fast attack swarms, coastal batteries designed to disable ships attempting to land troops from the sea. The Tripoli has no landing craft. Its Marines arrive not through mined water, but through the air. MV-22 Ospreys and CH-53 helicopters insert troops onto islands and coastline positions that Iran never built beach defenses against, because a ship without landing craft was never supposed to be there. 3 Iranian-held islands sit directly inside the Hormuz shipping corridor. Abu Musa, Greater Tumb, and Lesser Tumb, seized by Iran in 1971 and fortified with anti-ship missile batteries, coastal radar, and IRGC garrisons. They are unsinkable weapons platforms at point-blank range against any tanker attempting to transit. Carrier aircraft can hit them with missiles. What they cannot do is neutralize them, put troops on the ground, disable the launchers by hand, and hold the position long enough to confirm nothing is left threatening ships. That is the job the 31st MEU was trained for. That is the job one of the few platforms currently in this theater can execute. The doctrine Tripoli is bringing to Hormuz, Expeditionary Advanced Base Operations, the most radical restructuring of the Marine Corps since World War II, is a full breakdown on its own. Subscribe if you want that analysis. We solve these equations every week. Now, what Tripoli has already done. The USS Tripoli did not wait to reach the Strait of Hormuz to enter the fight. According to operational reporting, Tripoli's embarked F-35Bs were flying combat air patrol missions in support of strike packages from the opening phase of Operation Epic Fury, contributing organic aviation and strike coordination and reconnaissance capability before the ship had even completed its transit. The 31st MEU's ground combat element was providing the Joint Force Commander with a demonstrated amphibious option that complicated Iranian defensive planning before a single Marine had landed anywhere. 2 days before Tripoli received its deployment orders, the 31st MEU had just completed Exercise Iron Fist 26 with Japanese self-defense forces, 3 weeks of island seizure, electronic warfare, and rapid amphibious assault training that ended on March 9th. The deployment orders came on March 11th. The unit that had been rehearsing island seizure operations was ordered to the region containing the most strategically contested islands on the planet within 48 hours of finishing that rehearsal. That is not a coincidence. That is sequencing. Open-source ship tracking confirmed Tripoli transiting the South China Sea and passing north of Singapore through the Malacca Strait on March 17th. By March 20th, the ship was tracked south of Sri Lanka. Reports suggest arrival in the operational theater around late March, placing the ship in range of the Hormuz corridor approximately at the same time as a reported 48-hour ultimatum to Iran was set to expire. Whether that timing is deliberate strategic signaling or operational coincidence, Iran is not in a position to ignore it. The U.S. Navy spent 5 years defending a ship that Congress wanted redesigned and critics wanted scrapped. The argument was always the same. Removing the well deck made Tripoli less of an amphibious ship and more of a budget aircraft carrier. The counter-argument was that the well deck was the wrong tool for the threat environment the Marine Corps was actually preparing for. Not a Cold War beach landing in Europe, but contested island environments where the sea surface is mined and defended, and where Marines need to arrive by air, not by water. The Strait of Hormuz in March 2026 is precisely the environment the well deck critics never modeled. There are mines in the water. There are fortified islands in the shipping lane. There are mobile missile batteries along 100 miles of coastline. There are drone boats that require persistent low-altitude patrol to intercept before they reach a tanker. The conventional landing craft that critics demanded the Navy keep would be neutralized before reaching the beach. The aviation capability that replaced them, the F-35Bs, the Ospreys, the Apaches, arrives over the target before the target knows it is being approached. The ship the Navy's critics hated is now the ship the Navy needs. Not because it is invulnerable. 44,000 tons of steel in range of Iranian coastal missiles carries real risk, and no one at the Pentagon is pretending otherwise. But because it is one of the few platforms in this theater that combines persistent stealth air power, the ability to insert Marines by air onto defended island positions, and enough firepower to hold what it takes. The critics were arguing about the wrong war. The ship they called a mistake was built for this one. What the Marines aboard Tripoli will actually do when they arrive The island raids, the coastal positions, the doctrine the Marine Corps has been building toward for a decade. That breakdown is already on this channel. This video is based on publicly available reports and analysis. Some details may be subject to change.